Okay, we're at the very beginning of this project. I did go ahead and remove this chain cover guard off of the sled itself. That's really some of the very minor things that I've done. I'm going to organize my screws and my bolts here just to make sure I've got everything together. I had to yank this sled over onto my little mat that I've got. We're going to open up the hood here, and we're going to pull this guard off for the clutch. And we're going to get right into pulling the exhaust off so we can access our brackets and get the chain tensioner, get the old sprocket off, get the old chain off, get the old clutch off. We'll clean things up, and we'll hopefully have this installed this evening without any massive issues. Fingers crossed. Different chain tensioner kit on it. This is the type of kit where you have to actually manually put pressure against the chain to hold it in place. It's a billet style. There's another one on the market. Because we're doing this hop-up kit, and this is what we picked, and we're going with the lighter chain, and we're different sprocket gearing to make it go quicker. I think they claim we're going to see anywhere from like 15 to under 20 miles an hour, depending on your air-fuel ratio, your jet size, how the machine's running. But I like the idea of running that lighter chain. Obviously, these kids aren't going to be, we're not putting a 200-pound guy on this to drive around the yard and put pressure on this whole chassis. So I'm really not concerned about that. We're going to get to the next step where I will probably pull the bolt off to take this clutch off. It looks like we've got a spring here holding this guide around the actual clutch itself. I don't really know how all this works yet, but we're going to dig into this and figure it out. Okay, boom, just like that. The second you start doing a job, you realize that you need so many different tools when you start working on projects. If you're doing engine work on vehicles and you start looking at how many tools you have out, it's a disaster. So I'm sure you guys can relate, but I try to stay clean and organized. This is just ridiculous. So I'm gonna grab the snap ring plier kit to pop off for the clutch. These are just a economical option for a snap ring kit, but they get the job done. So let's see if we can get this snap ring off. Do we have a new one? Doesn't appear so. What are they saying here? Remove OEM clutch from the engine, check. You gotta hit it with a wrench. We didn't have to do that. Slide it off, separate the old 10T number 40 pitch drum from the clutch, removing the snap ring, remove the old black fiber washer and install the new 35 pitch drum with the red fiber washer here. Put the clutch back on the engine. New chain will need to be cut to length. So we're gonna have to cut our chain. I don't have a chain cutter. I have some ideas, but we'll see how much of a mess I make doing that. Let's go ahead. Okay, snap ring pliers. If you haven't bought yourself an economical set of these, I'll link these down below. I'll link all the cheap tools that I'm using down below because I've got some nice tools. I also have some inexpensive stuff. It's a game changer when you have tools that work, for sure. Okay. Come on now. We're close. Come on. There we go. So here's your old, what is it, 40T chain sprocket setup. Here's the new. They're showing this bad boy. Fiber washer should sit on this. Slide off. Separate, yep. Removing the snap ring with the snap ring pliers. You're going to remove the old black fiber washer. Here is the old black fiber washer on our actual shaft for our clutch kit. So that's the old one we're removing. We'll set that to the side. I'm going to clean this up before I put on the red fiber washer. Brake clean is everybody's friend with jobs like this. The amount of brake cleaner I go through, I cannot tell you. I should have a budget just specifically designed for how much brake clean can be used, because it's just the miracle juice. You gotta have it. I use it all the time. Fast drying, wash your hands. Don't get it in your eyes, that hurts. But this stuff's legit. I would say my favorite is probably the CRC green can, the big boy. That one, so nice. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and put this fiber washer on here. Work this down this shaft very nicely. Don't rip it. Take your time working it on. And it's not going anywhere. Okay, cool. We're stuck on the circlip slot. Isn't that nice? Come on now. Oof, the tight fit. There we go. Okay. Your fiber washer gets pressed to the bottom. That's going to probably add your correct spacing for your clutch itself. The brass, sleeve, press-in sleeve, the bushing in here looks good. I don't feel like I need to grease anything necessarily. It's nice and clean. Let's press this on here. Well, I'm gonna hit it with a little tiny bit of Scotch-Brite just to make sure we've got a nice clean surface. Okay, nice and clean. This feels good. All right, solid. Feels like butter. Beautiful. I'm sure we just throw on our snap ring now. Circlip, whatever you want to call it. That's set in the groove. Okay, so now let me show you what you're changing. You're going from a beefy OEM heavy sprocket to now we have a 35, number 35 chain, 35 sprocket. And that's going to make it so that we're not having that much resistance on this little engine. Everything feels good, looks good. That's ready to go. I believe that's ready to go back in the sled. They do offer you some bushings, probably for spacing. So we just want to make sure when we're putting all this together that the chain lines up nice and straight. We'll put on our sprocket here. That's what this is for. So you've got your sprocket that's going to get bolted to this. We're going to use our old key, so that's why we set our sprocket to the side. We're going to put in our old keyway, and that's what's going to go over the shaft for the track. That's what's going to spin the track. A much smaller sprocket is going to spin a whole heck of a lot faster than a huge one. I'm going to show you the difference. It is shocking how much quicker this is going to be rotating in revolutions versus the old one. Looks like they give you 4 bolts for that. I will look into the instructions on this. I don't need to take you guys along on all this journey, but since we're this far, I guess why not? Remove drive chain, done. Remove the rear sprocket, remove the bolt, blah, blah, blah. Install the new hub on the drive shaft with OEM key, included large washer, OEM stock factory washer and bolt, tighten securely. What? Yep. Okay, include what? There's the washer that you're going to use. What bolt are they talking about? Install a new hub on the drive shaft with OEM key. Included large washer. OEM stock factory washer and bolt. So you're using your old washer and bolt that you took off your sprocket. There we go. I'm done. Install the new sprocket on the outside of the hub with included M6 bolts. These buddies loosen the engine bolt side and bottom to move the engine all the way back. What? Loosen the engine bolt side and bottom to move the engine all the way back. Wrap the chain around the sprockets as tight as possible. Mark the chain to be cut, install the chain with the master link, then move the engine forward to get the chain about 1/2 inch of slack. Tighten the engine bolt securely. If you purchase a recommended HD chain tensioner, install it now. This guy, they want me to move those bolts? Wow. Okay. Well, let's do that next. All right. A couple steps I would recommend for you folks. So we're going to pull out our old key. Here's the old sprocket. Here's the new sprocket. So you can see just how much more revolutions you're going to get rotating your track to get that speed out of the kit. So I'm going to get this key out of the sprocket itself. There it goes. That was easy. Of course, it's been beat up, so I'll file down the whatever the heck somebody smashed on it. I'll file that down so it slides into our billet adapter nicely. This will get pushed on. That'll be good. I'll probably do some blue Loctite on the bolts that go through into the actual sprocket, because there is no good reason to have. We're going to remove the old washer using a new washer, and that's going to hold the bolt in place. I got to figure out if this is required or not. It shows in the images that you would use the old washer and bolt, but I don't know about this big mamma jamma here, so I'll figure that out. They did supply you with a washer. That's gonna, it's not really gonna change anything on your spacing. Where you're gonna get your spacing adjustments is your chain tensioner for sure, and then potentially where your actual clutch is gonna sit, because you're not gonna change any spacing with this going into place and button up against. Oh, you can. Yeah, so I just want to make sure the chain's nice and straight. I'm sure that's what the spacers are for, or the shims rather. So I'm going to clean up our key. I'm going to get some Loctite thrown on this, and then we're going to bolt this in place. Okay guys, camera died, so I had a little time to do a little recon, and I learned that the washers that they supply you are for spacing your clutch bell away, so that when your chain tensioner is installed, you don't accidentally grind against the tensioner, which that makes a whole lot of sense. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this. I got the key ground down so we don't have that weird flange on it. This should hopefully, yep, sits in there real nicely. So that is good. I'm gonna get my Loctite. We're gonna put this hub back on to the tunnel, and then we will move on to the next step. All right, after closer examination, this thing is bent. So you can see that is not a straight key. So we're gonna install it going into the cog for where the keyway goes, but that is not good. So I filed off the big flange from it being bashed on, or however they installed it. We'll see if I can get this in the groove of our sprocket right there. And let's keep cranking. Okay, we got the key in the new hub. We're gonna go ahead and throw a little Loctite. I'm using blue Loctite just in case this ever needs to be taken apart again. We're just gonna do a little tiny line here on the threads just to keep this from falling apart. Putting this on the new hub. So I'm gonna get this spun in. I like that it is a billet hub. That's very nice. Hopefully this hardware is stainless. I have no clue if it is. I suppose I could take a magnet and find out, but if anything, they are probably coated. And if you keep your sleds clean, that is a big thing. If you can keep your machine clean, that's gonna really help you get the life out of everything. Just to make sure that you are maintaining it, keeping your machines lubricated, keeping them clean, keeping them greased. That's gonna make a big difference. Okay, we got our key in here. We're gonna get this on the spline inside the hub. All right, that went together nicely. Now, the demonstration or the instructions show you're going to take their new washer, you're going to put that over the shaft of what's sitting on the sled. You're going to use this large, big washer, the small washer, and your stock bolt. These are stock parts. That's going to go into the actual shaft for where your belt sits. That's what's going to rotate the belt. Just a tiny bit of Loctite. I don't want this stuff falling apart. We'll get this threaded in. I'll get this tight, and then I will go ahead and tighten the remainder of those bolts on the sprocket, just because I didn't want to hang on to that with my own fingers. That would suck. Using a touch of snowmobile grease, which should help keep things nice and lubricated. We're going to put this in place here around the shaft where our clutch is going to go, just a tiny bit, so that our new clutch can slide on nicely and get in place here. Let's get this moving around. There we go. Okay. And then let's take a look at our chain tensioner. So the tensioner actually looks like it potentially pinches around. We're going to put this in place here. That's going to go into the engine, and then this goes and pinches against the actual bracket here. So I don't think we're drilling any holes. From what I can tell, they show that the washers just simply pinch around this bracket or this tunnel. You're going to tighten that up. That's going to tighten there, and you want to see 3 inches of gap between your chain opening from your sprocket going towards the front. So they do say you're going to get rid of your old bolt. You're going to run your new bolt in. I'm pretty sure this is correct. This doesn't look the same, but you do have this bushing sleeve here, and this sleeve goes through. So if I show you guys, the new bolt they supply has got that sleeve on it. That goes through your billet adapter. We're going to do a tiny bit of Loctite on the threads here, and that's going to go into the motor, and that'll hold it in place. And then you're going to have your washers pinch the tunnel up top. Okay, so we have our washers pinching the tunnel bracket here. That's nice and tight. You want to make sure that your spring is not sitting against that tunnel piece, and you don't want your spring sticking out too far, so it's going to rub against your chain. That's what these washers are for. So you're going to want to keep an eye on just the straightness of that chain. Make sure those things are going to be free. We're going to go ahead and get a measurement here. So they're saying a minimum of 3 inches between the chains. So my measurement, where they're showing the spacing, right now we are at 2 3/8. It looks like we need to go down with our tensioner before I can cut my chain. So I'm going to loosen this chain tensioner. We're going to loosen this up so we can slide this down. Okay. And you don't want to just push on the spring. You want to slide down the actual bracket itself. So I'm going to let off some tension here on the chain itself, so that we have the ability to push down on this. So we're down all the way.
Okay guys, so we're just about done here with this extensive video talking about this Hopup kit from Midwest Minis. So the kit went together pretty easily. The only snafu I had along this install setup was my chain tensioner actually had to slide up in order to give me the proper spacing and tension against the chain, so I had that proper gap. The other thing I ran into is this chain that is on the actual sled itself. I cut it too short, so I did have to order another chain. That came, I measured twice, cut once instead of cut twice, because you just keep losing chain. So that actually worked out pretty well. I'm going to get into a couple other things in this video, so if you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe, and let's get into the other part of the video. And then at the very end of this video, you guys can see this little sled ripping around the yard. It is quite the improvement, this Hopup kit. Let's get to the next piece.
Okay, so the chain I broke should be here today. That'll be good to get that put on so we can get the clutch and the whole mechanism for the clutch kit assembled. I have the spark plug out. We got a fresh spark plug. I'm going to make sure I gap that to the proper gap for the plug itself. We are going to drain the oil now. So I'm going to pull the dipstick to make sure it's got the maximum amount of flow to give the sled, good grief, goodness sakes, to give the sled the maximum flow so that we can get the oil drained. We're going to grease a few things, get everything going together. I've got it a little bit detailed. I'm going to do a ceramic coating where I put on some Geon trim, and we're going to wipe down the sled, and then it should be set to rock. So we're going to drain the oil, we'll put some fresh oil in it, and we'll be set. Let's get to it. All right, guys, got the drain plug back in. Burned up about a bottle and a half of brake cleaner. You probably didn't want to watch me struggle to get this drain plug back in, but the little tip I have for you guys, if you turn your steering, you can fit your hand down in and you can put your hand underneath the skid plate and you're able to get that bolt in, so you can work the top and the bottom of the bolt, and then you're able to spin it in, get it nice and tight, finger tight, and then you're able to put a ratchet on it. I did replace the crush washer. I do have a kit I wanted to show you guys that actually has a crush washer that fits perfectly. It's definitely something you're going to want to pick up because it's economical, and you're going to have many other machines that you can service with this crush washer kit. So let me show you it. Okay, so it is the Magic Cave crush washer kit. It was this washer bundle right here, which is an M10 14 millimeter. This is a super nice kit to have. You've got a ton of options, right? And it has 330 pieces. So if you're looking for a crush washer setup, economical, definitely something nice to have on hand, especially if you've got other machines that you're doing services to, because these things can be expensive from the dealer. So the sled's kind of balancing. You can see it's shaking around. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this drain bolt. And I think it's a 12. We'll see if a 13 fits it, just to make sure. Again, you're going to want to use a lot of brake clean. The nice thing I could do here is I've got the rear of the sled on a jack stand. I've got a jack underneath the front of the sled, and I let the jack down so I was able to drain all the oil out the bottom of the engine. So I'm going to make sure I'm putting in as much fresh oil as possible. I had some leftover oil that I actually poured in here, and I pulled the motor over to try to flush out whatever there was in the engine, just to make sure I was giving this engine the best shot possible to have fresh oil and get rid of any contaminants, any gunk sitting at the bottom of the engine, just so that when we go ahead and fill this back up, we are going to be sitting with the most fresh oil possible. Okay. The clutch kit's installed. We got the tensioner tight. The new chain is on. Master link's installed. I will tighten the bolt to the crankshaft once the sled's on the ground so I'm not spinning the track. I did pick up a engine gasket for the, not an engine gasket, an exhaust gasket, and a new spring so that we are able to have a nice tight seal and not create any type of tuning issues on the sled itself. So we got our old nuts, a new donut gasket. They come with two different options, I'm sure, with two different style machines. One is almost like a restrictor plate. So we're gonna put our gasket in place here. We'll slide this on. Where'd it go? Here we go. Spring tool. That will put our new exhaust spring on. Whoops, that's going to hold it in place nice and tight, which will be great. No rattles, no nasty sound in the muffler. Yank this up on there. Spring tool out there. Come on, baby. There we go. Fabuloso. There she goes. Nice. Okay. Hit with the grease gun. So we'll get that done. just while it's hanging here. All right, the sled takes 0.6 quarts. I'm running the modal 0W40. I may consider putting in a little bit of the Ceratec liquid moly product as well, just to keep this thing running as pure as possible. 0.6 quarts. So we are gonna leave just a little bit left here. Let's get this thing filled up so she will be able to fire up, and we will see how she rips. So you can definitely tell the clutch engages and it hits hard. He is not, he's not hitting the top speed at all. So on the lake, I think you could definitely open it up more. Seems like it's running good. We don't have a lot of snow.
As you can see, guys, this Hopup kit makes a big improvement to the stock ZR120. If you guys are looking to have a clutch that engages faster, gives you a higher top speed, pulls the sled around with ease, puts less restriction against the motor, definitely worth grabbing the Midwest Minis kit. I've got several recommendations in the description, so if you're looking for tools, for parts, for different items that you guys want to pick up to do this kit to your own sled, definitely check that out. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Sorry this was a long one, but I wanted to get the data and the info out there. We'll see you all in the next one. Peace.